programmed, conditioned, taught to center our programmed, conditioned, taught to center our programmed, conditioned, taught to center our
about today. Audre Lorde and people of her time were really talking about this very thing, the intersections, and the fact that we are not ever one singular thing, that we are comprised of all the things, of all the history, of all of the experiences, of all of the cultures, all of the identities that make us up who we are. There's a couple of quotes that I'm going to go back to tonight, but the first is one that really struck me the first time I read her book, Sister Outsider. And if you've never read Sister Outsider, please go get it. And this is, there is always someone asking you to underline one piece of yourself. These are her words. Whether it's black, woman, mother, dyke, teacher, etc. Because that's the piece that they need to key into, and they want to dismiss everything else. This idea is something that has been with me all of my life. And so I'm going to ask you to indulge me for a moment, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my origin story. So I was born in 1970. I proudly claim every 52 of my years because I earned them. So I was born in 1970 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, to a 19-year-old unwed white mother and a 20-year-old black father. And I lay that groundwork because all of those aspects of that scenario factored significantly into not only my birth, but everything that's transpired since. Let's think about it. 1970. A lot of people will say the civil rights movement ended in 1968, but I can assure you that 1970, Chattanooga, Tennessee, deep South, still really struggling with its racist identity. My mother goes to the hospital to have me, a biracial, mixed, multiracial child, whatever they wanted to call me at the time. And she was assigned a social worker. And this social worker's job in her mind was to convince my mother that she was surely going to ruin her life, and at the very least mine, if she as a white woman tried to raise a biracial child. So much so that when I was born, I was very anemic, so I was extremely fair. I mean, I looked like a China doll. I had white skin and jet black hair. This woman, seeing me for the first time, tells my mother, well, perhaps you can pass her off as a white baby. But babies change, and so better to be safe than sorry. And so she took it upon herself, without my mother's consent or my parents' consent or their knowledge, took me from the hospital, took me across state lines, and placed me in foster care with a black family. Now that is another story for another time, so we'll talk about that over cocktails later. But, and I will just say, through the grace of many and a little divine intervention, I found my way back to my mother. But the point is that from even before I was born, my identity, or the intersectionality of my identities, were making people uncomfortable. And so even as a young child, I was very aware of that. And I think because of that, my reaction was I became increasingly more interested about the intersections. Even as a little girl, I spent a lot of time around adults. And so if there was a party going on or we were someplace like this, I would always seek out the oldest person in the room, corner them in the corner and be like, I want to know your story. Who are you? Where'd you come from? Where'd you meet your husband or your wife? Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? Whatever it was, I wanted to know. And I wanted to know the whole story. I wanted to understand who they are, how they were showing up in that space. I didn't have that language then, but now looking back, that's what I was after. And I think that largely is what kind of led me to this career in the arts, was wanting to know the story. And we'll get back to that in a second. When I think about these words that Audre Lorde wrote, I think the reason that they really resonated with me is because just like that moment at my birth, ever since then I've inhabited spaces where I've been told that I'm not black enough, I'm not white enough, I'm too black, I'm too white, When I resist the notion of being put into one particular box that we can check off to sum up who I am, I've been told that I can't have it that way, that I can't have it both ways. I can't be both. I have to choose one or the other. I have to carve out one aspect of my identity and claim that as my totality. And when I further resisted that, usually what ends up happening is they make that decision for me. They put me in whatever box that makes them the most comfortable or fits the narrative or the agenda that suits them at the moment. So again, I've always been interested in, one, why we do that. Why we refuse to see the totality of each other. Why we buy into this notion of the single narrative. Because none of us are singular, right? None of us show up in space as just one thing, in just one way, just one aspect of our identity. Even when I'm speaking before professional groups as an arts administrator and arts leader, everything that I have is coming with me to that moment. And my experience is informing how I'm navigating that space from those early days in Chattanooga, Tennessee, all the way to this evening. So, the arts. I think that I came to my career really through a love of acting. I love to be on stage. I always have, and I think what really drew me into that was that it really allowed me an opportunity to see the world through somebody else's eyes. To literally, for a period of time when I'm on stage, to walk in their shoes. To understand a different perspective. To have to let go of myself and my ego and give myself to a moment to really try to understand how somebody else is showing up in the world and how they're navigating that and how they're navigating the world. I know when Dr. Lulu read my bio, I always include that because I do believe that the arts are the most powerful tool, or one of the most powerful tools that we have to express our humanity. And I've had a long career in the arts and have been so grateful that I've been able to spend the past, I think now 13, 14 years at the Carver Community Cultural Center. For those of you that are not familiar with the Carver, as was explained, it is by mission a multicultural, multidisciplinary performing and visual arts center. But it's very much rooted, one, in this geographic community. It's just a couple minutes down the road here on Hackberry on the east side. And it's very much rooted in the Black experience in San Antonio too. And so we really, through all of our programming, try to honor that history and use the arts as a mechanism, as a tool to preserve, to share, and to celebrate that culture, but also as an opportunity to do the same for the various cultures of our global community. And I'm so excited because I'm sitting here and I'm looking out and I see so many faces that have been on that stage, so many people that have been involved in the Carver in various ways, and I think that's the beauty of an institution like that. And one of the reasons that I'm so grateful to be there, because it allows me an opportunity to marry this personal vision of how I want to navigate the world and what I believe the world can look like with what I do every day as part of my job and part of my career. So you will see at the Carver that we really try to have those conversations. It really is about let's have a conversation, yes, about the ways, about our common humanity, about the things that we share, and the ways that we are alike. But I am really so much more interested in the ways that we are different. I want to know how you show up in space in the way that only you can. When you think about, I don't know, somebody know how many people are in the world? What's our global population? Anybody?
8 billion. 8 billion.
8 billion? Sure, we'll roll with that.
I know, right?
You can check it when you get home. And when you think about the fact that 8 billion people and not one of us is alike. We are all different. Regardless of what identities we share, regardless of what experiences we have in common, regardless of what circumstances we might have in common, we all show up every moment of every day in our lives in the way that only we can. Which brings me to another quote by Audre Lorde, probably one of her most famous and oft quoted. It is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. So I would really encourage all of us, when we think about ways that we can even address the division that we're experiencing right now in our society, yes, let's have a conversation where we can understand that we have a lot in common. But until we are able and willing to recognize each of us as unique individuals, we're not really seeing each other. We're not really seeing each other. We will not be able to see each other, and we will not be able to have that true transformation that we need until we are able to not only see, but honor and celebrate the fact that we are each unique individuals in our own right. So that's really what resonated with me when I was thinking about this year's theme for Dream Week of identity and representation. And of course, once you get that in your mind, it just was like, kept coming to me in waves. I kept finding myself in spaces where this idea was being affirmed and shared and kept growing. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about Dream Week is, yes, it is a way for us to honor Dr. King's legacy and his vision, but it is also a way, it's an opportunity for us to have conversations, to listen to one another, to really sit down and get to know, or to be open to a different perspective, a different experience. So I'm really grateful to have been asked to be part of this speaker series. I'm very excited to hear from the other two speakers this evening. And I am going to wrap it up with just this thought, that we are not ever one-dimensional. We are never singular in our experiences or our expressions, and that the only way that we are exactly the same is in the fact that we are all different.
Amazing. I want to give you a hug. I'm a hugger. Can we please give a beautiful, amazing, Texas-sized, bigly round of applause for our first speaker? So good. So we're going to take, no, ma'am. We're going to take 5 minutes to get feedback from the audience, questions from the audience. I want to talk about what I learned. We're never one single thing. We're never a singular. I love that. And because I talk about that all the time, I'm going to just kind of brag a little bit about some of my intersectional identity. So I'm black. Like you didn't notice. I'm a mom. I'm African. Yes, if you didn't guess. I just happen to be a physician. I'm single. Got 3 kids. 1 is trans. I live in Texas. I'm moving. Like, this is what we are supposed to all kind of recognize about ourselves. And so because I have the mic, because I can, I'm going to ask my beautiful speaker to just pick one victim in the crowd to share their intersectional spots, factors. Just pick one. Okay. I'm going to pick. I got to talk a little louder, plus a little hard hearing in this ear.
John. How many Johns are in the room?
Only one to get done.
All right.
Let me give my mic.
I literally was stuffing my mouth when she said my name.
That's all right. We're all friends here, John.
First of all, thank you so much. Such an amazing talk. If that was improv, then I'm signing up for your master's class.
Thank you. That was improv.
I love the distinction that you made, not boiling us down to our lowest common denominator, but being unique in our own way. You know, I often hear people say things like, I don't see color, for example, when we start talking about, you know, those spaces. And that always bothered me. It's like, that seems like a deficiency in your eyes, right? I'm black, I'm gay, I'm single, what else? I'm a veteran. I'm sweating because Dr. Lulu called me out. I'm all these things, and I love, you know, all of that adds texture to my voice, right? And so I wanted to ask you, when approached, I'm sure you've been in those conversations where people will espouse that thought process of I don't see color, or we're all the same, or, you know, how do you address that, or what comes up for you in those spaces to enlighten that it's okay to be your unique self? I think it was I can't remember where the quote comes from, but it was the mark of an educated mind is to be able to stand in the opinions of others and not lose your own identity, something to that effect. Like, I think that's the wonderful thing about our uniqueness. It's not that you have to lose yourself, and it's not that it's standing in your truth diminishes others. Like, how do you address that? Or how do you discuss that?
So, like you...
Wait, Cassandra, one question. You forgot handsome. Okay, I just wanted to put that.
I owe you $5.
Okay, all right, Cassandra, go ahead.
Like you, when I'm in those conversations and someone says that I don't see color, or why can't we just, we're all the same, you know, why do we need to talk about this? You know, when I was younger, I didn't have the language. Like, there was a feeling, right? Like something in my gut that I was like, this isn't the way, right? But now, you know, benefit of time and benefit of being in spaces where we're having these types of conversations, I have the language. And so what I would respond, or how I respond in those instances now, is if you do not see that, then you are not seeing that person for who they are, right? You're trying to deny something to make yourself more comfortable. And that's not engagement, right? Like, that's not really trying to get to the root of the thing, right? We need to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, right? And we need to have them, and we need to grant some grace. I was talking to, I came back from a conference about a week ago where we're having a lot of these types of conversations, and one of the things that came up is we're not even using the same language, right? Like, we're having this conversation now, but there's many people that if we were to mention intersectionality, they're like, what? What is that? So, one, you know, taking the time to have those conversations, and yes, it can be exhausting, and yes, especially as people of color, women of color, it can be exhausting. But I do think that, you know, the more we have those conversations, the more we acknowledge when things like that are said, we're like, no. You know, think about what you're saying. You're not seeing me for who I am. You are seeing me for who you want me to be.
Ooh, shade. Master Shader, I love it. Master, I was going to say shade. Master Shader. So it's 7 o'clock, and according to my boss over there, I'm supposed to take a break. Y'all, please give it up for oh my God, Cassandra, take it down, sis. Love it. So, if you have any more questions, hold them, because I've told everyone that at the end of all of this beauty, we're going to get all the speakers together on that stage, and then y'all are going to ask them some more questions. So stay till the end, okay? Stay till the end. I also wanted to mention, does anybody know the definition of affinity bias. Anyone want to take a jab at the word or the phrase affinity bias? We're talking about identities here and representation. I know, I didn't know either. But if you know me, then you know I'm a podcaster. Literally, I think I'm the one person that has 5 podcasts and a radio show. Like, I don't have enough things to talk about. So one of my podcasts is titled Queer Wednesday Wisdom. And on this past week's episode, I had a lady all the way from UK came on the show, and she dropped that. You know, them folk, they be educated. Yeah, educated. I was like, affinity bias. Well, so affinity bias is basically what Cassandra said. We find things about people that are about us, and then we gel to that. I said, when she was walking up the stage, I said, black girl rock. That's what I saw. That's an affinity bias. She's more than a black girl. She said that. She probably didn't know she was saying it, but she said that. She's more than one person. So y'all, you learned that new information right now. So y'all write it down. We're gonna have a test at the end. Before I bring my next guest up to the stage, I want to give y'all a homework. I was listening to Brooke Castillo's podcast today, and she said 5 questions to ask yourself. And the premise is you've been given 12 months to live. And the first question is, what would you stop doing if you had 12 months to live? The second question is, what would you start doing if you had 12 months to live? The third question is, what will you stop basically giving a fuck about? I mean, can we say that? So I want y'all to think about those 3 questions as we go on to the next guest. I promised you, what? Oh, okay. That's my boss. Whatever, I can hop. Okay. Can do whatever. Okay, so next guest. Excuse me, oh my God. Wow, you know, I keep thinking I'm not in my 50s. Reading glasses. I'm in denial. Okay, a seasoned DEI practitioner and consultant. First generation graduate Alex Rodriguez, aka San Antonio's A-Rod, I just made that up, brings her years of civil rights activism, a word that I love, engagement and community outreach and development into the forefront of her work, collaborating with organizations and businesses to ensure company leadership, in facilitation with stakeholders and employees alike, work to establish a culture built on diverse, equitable, and inclusive practices. Just the big words alone. Y'all just give it up for her first of all, because those big words. Did y'all hear first generation graduate? I'm here for that, okay? All right. A Texas native and legislative analyst working in local politics, Alex is no stranger to navigating challenging dialogue and working with organizations and individuals with diverse perspectives and lived experiences. She has provided DEI training and committee initiatives to varying organizations and political campaigns, most recently including works with campaign volunteers supporting former Texas gubernatorial candidate Beto O'Rourke, as well as Congressman Greg Casar. Alex proudly shares her perspective and lived experiences as a first-generation Mexican-American facing many paths of adversity, and now works alongside varying groups to ensure they understand the impact of every step made in this journey. A-Rod is a Texas State University alumnus holding degrees in political science, administrative law, and business. I can use mic now. I can use mic. Yes. My boss said yes. A-Rod currently serves as the manager of diversity, Equity and Inclusion at San Antonio Zoo, where she leads an award-winning DEI program and works alongside executive and community leaders to make the zoo a zoo for all. Everyone, please welcome mi amiga, my friend, A-Rod. I love it.
Before A-Rod says a single word. Well, I just want to thank everyone for being here. This is a wonderful Dream Week. I just want to thank our man, Keith Oliver. Yes. He's an alumni of the speaking series as well. This is a gift to the community. Thank you for all you do. Thank you all. Everyone is working back there. No eye contact. Okay, there you go. And then, obviously, you can tell that she doesn't have any bosses at all, right? I don't even have to explain that one. But thank Dr. Lulu, my dear friend, and Cassandra. I didn't miss your talk. I came. I was here. I heard you. Beautiful spirit. Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah. Don't shoot me.
Because he didn't introduce himself. This is Shakari. He is the creator of DreamWeek, our spearheading champion for all the work that we're doing. So thank you for being here, Sho.
Exactly. Sho, you took the mic before I got a chance to introduce you. You know what that means? Y'all watch the door. Yes.
Don't let him.
If you know, you know. Because I was supposed to do an official intro, so y'all keep your eyes on the door. All right, thank y'all so much. So, you know what? Let your little light shine, my girl. Take it away. A-Rod in the building! Y'all give it up for her, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lulu, and thank you everybody for being here with us today. You know, it's a privilege to be up here as a speaker for the Dream Hour and Dream Week series alongside Cassandra and alongside Joelle, who's going to be coming up after me. It's a true privilege to be up here. No pressure that, you know, the founder of DreamWeek is now here, right? No pressure at all. So I'm very excited to chat with you all today. So Cassandra has kind of compelled me now to share a little bit of my own background. I am a first generation Mexican American. My family migrated from Mexico right before I was born. So my mother was pregnant when she came this way. So I do like to start off with saying, who in the room is familiar with code switching? There we go, okay. So I am a victim of code switching at this moment, making myself more palatable just because it's a very much of a sacrifice, but also very much of a survival tactic that a lot of us have to use, people of color who are really familiar with it. Myself, I have the privilege of, and the challenge of being a young Latina who works primarily with executive C-suite members, working political campaigns. And if it's not already enough of a struggle being young and Latina, but being, you know, a little bit aggressive in the work that I do, because I gotta be. So I thank you in advance for being patient as I slide in and out of the code switching. Some of you will be very familiar with that. So as Dr. Lulu had mentioned, you know, I currently lead the diversity program at San Antonio Zoo. Thank you. First, I want to thank members of my DEI council who are here in support of me. I could not do my work without them. So thank you. I'm just going to put you on the spot for a second. Is he more over there? Perfect. So one of the things that was really important for me to talk about during my privileged moment to be on stage is that I greatly remember being a young child with a large family and not being able to go to the zoo. You know, it is, for those of you who maybe don't go to the current, you know, our zoo here, or if you are familiar, zoos can be expensive, you know, and I understand, you know, they're nonprofits and they do have to make funds to, you know, make things last and provide support for the zoo to operate. But when you're a family of 4 or 5 plus, 4 being the average in San Antonio, you know, imagine trying to take a whole family when tickets are $25 a piece, being able to afford to take your family to support and be there for the day, and souvenirs and food. You know, I was a child who, anytime I went into the zoo, you're not getting anything, don't ask. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You're here, that's the gift. Why are you crying? So we know. And so when I had the privilege to work alongside the zoo full time, and I left, you know, politics behind temporarily, I just thought, how many kids like me don't have access to the zoo now? And not by default, not by intention now, by our zoo or by most zoos. It's just what happens when there's socioeconomic disadvantages. So that was something that was really important to me, because when I took on this role, and I'm the first in my role at the zoo, it meant a million things to me to, one, be the first in this role, but my fellow women, men, non-binary people of color, we know that it's a risk being the first. It is a great risk to be the first in your position, and to be of color, you have no room or little room for mistake. And one, being as young as I am in this field was another thing. You know, you have all these doubts on you about being naive or being young, or how can you stand your own. So it is a privilege to be in this position that I don't take lightly. So I wanted to say that, and thank you for your time and hearing me speak today, because this is an important conversation. So one of the things I want to specifically talk about are the barriers that are in place in zoological fields in general. So take to heart that this doesn't mean specifically San Antonio Zoo. It's zoos around the country, zoos around the world. So AZA, who is the association that oversees all accredited zoos, recently went on and said, it had a statement that openly admitted that their practices and what they've benefited from has stemmed from racist and obstructive and oppressive practices. It's a huge deal. One of the biggest things we talk about in this work is accountability at its finest. So for AZA to come forward and make this statement was the first step in acknowledging we're ready for change. We know where we're lacking. We know we have a long way to go, but we're here. So it's time to bring in the right people to do the work. So when I was brought in, I was pretty much told it's an uphill climb. Even with the most supportive leadership that we have at the zoo, you're not fighting an organization, you're fighting a systemic structure that's been in place. This is these people who regulate all the zoos, and even with the best intention, we know there's performative action. We know that there are things that just save face. So my biggest goal coming in was strip the performative BS. We're not here to do that. We're not here to post a black square on Instagram. We're not here to rainbow fire our logos and take them down as soon as Pride Month is over. Because we know how that goes. We've all seen that happen. So whenever I reviewed our zoo and I was reviewing general practices, one of the things we looked at was, what are these systemic barriers that are in place that we keep hearing about? Because a lot of people don't see it. If it doesn't affect you, you don't see it. Even the rules that are in place, if you have the money in your pocket, those rules don't apply to you, despite the other intersectionalities that you might carry with you. So what I was looking, not just the socioeconomic things that are going on, but the barriers that are there for these kids in place. Like I said, I didn't go to the zoo very much when I was a kid, and when I did go, it seemed like magic to me. So when I started going to zoos, I never saw myself working in those environments. Everybody who was with the animals or running around looked like, an official, didn't look like me. So I never saw myself there. So how can we accomplish an increase in identity and representation in a zoo when the very children who are the future of our organization come in and don't even see themselves amongst the people who are there the days that they go? So that was a big thing. I didn't see myself there. There's no way that I could ever see myself working in a position where I could be leading an organization. I tell my council members all the time, young Latina me from the hood would not have imagined me being here today and having this privilege to speak with everybody. So when we talk about making these changes, conservation is everybody's job. Protecting our world, saving our wildlife, it does fall on the hands of everybody, but not everybody has the privilege to fight that fight when you're just trying to survive, right? So as much as the world and the leaders of the world want to go around and say, oh, well, conservation is everyone's job and all these different things, when we're trying to survive and just keep food on the table and keep our lights on, we don't want to worry about anything else that goes into it. One of the things I challenge, not only our own leadership, but I do have the privilege of holding a regional position. So your girl represents Texas for all the other zoos too. So one of the things we talk about often as we represent Texas is that, how can we say conservation is for all when we don't even allow all in the walls? We don't even allow everyone to come into this space in the first place, but you expect these kids of color, this next upcoming generation, to one, be the people who keep your doors open, but you also expect them to carry on your mission long after you're gone. So we look at these things to start creating these spaces for them now, because I know what it's like to be a brown child of a family of immigrants who does not feel welcomed at a zoo, at an aquarium, at a museum. And there's no reason that our children of color shouldn't be feeling welcome and accepted into an environment that we constantly create and try to better for those children. And then we challenge ourselves to look at which children are we making the improvements for. So given all these different changes, we talk about sustainability and what these changes look like to remove these barriers. And so we all know, in however many years, how many people, we said 8 billion people or something in this country? Yeah. The world's not gonna stay white forever, y'all. So we know that. And we constantly talk about, to keep it simple, the world's never gonna stay black and white. We're already far from that just in our 300 something plus years as a country. So we talk about, if you care about people and if you care about sustainability, you have to stop gatekeeping this field. There's no way you can do that and sustain your mission of conservation. And when we prevent those kids from coming in, let alone the adults who want to come into this field or who are already here, who felt like there's no way for them to mobilize, there's no way for them to have professional development. And this is something our council actively talks about. Our DEI council at the zoo currently works along leadership to actually implement change in our current policies. And we're starting mentorship programs. We're revoking outdated policies that further suppress and oppress our team members. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit, I also have notes, I'm a little ADHD, so. Right? One of the things I wanted to talk about was how these barriers are further impacting our ability to have diverse outreach along with actual professional development opportunities within the zoo. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the diverse outreach. And this goes to a lot of different organizations, not just here at the zoo and the zoo fields in general. Many leaders are afraid to make any kind of change at all simply because they're afraid. They're afraid of who signs my paycheck at the end of the day. Who are my stakeholders? Who's my board of directors? Who's the one who keeps our nonprofit afloat, and what are their values? And what I want to do going to align with their values? So, for example, if you have, and the same thing in even small management, large organizations, if you have a homophobic board of director, you think your organization is going to do a real pride celebration? Absolutely not. If you have a racist or ageist or anything like any of the isms that are out there, you're not going to have anything past performative. There's not going to be any way to have any real structural change. So I challenge, and thankfully that we do have a lot of support within our zoo, but I challenge the other zoos that I work with, I challenge the political campaigns I work with, whose money are you listening to? Who's funding your projects? Because whose guilt are you attached to at the end of the day that's preventing you from creating inclusive spaces, not only for your team members, but for your guests who are also coming in and keeping you sustained to keep your doors open? And oftentimes, more than not, we just get the, well, you're too young to understand. You don't get it. It's not your job on the line. It is my job on the line. If I can't keep your doors open and welcome our guests in, your girl's out of a job too. And so you hear it over and over again, DEI is profitable because inclusivity is where it's at. That's profitable, that's sustainable. This gatekeeping nonsense that we see throughout zoos, throughout aquariums, through museums, that's not sustainable. So I challenge you all to keep those things in mind when you're looking at who's making the decisions at the top of your chains. What events is your organization hosting? Which posts get celebrated? Which heritage months get acknowledged? And what's performative and what's not? We also talk about those changes to the professional development process. And if you're familiar with gatekeeping or working in an environment where your bosses bring in who your bosses know, if they look like them, they act like them, they come from the same backgrounds as them, that's how it's going to expand. It happens on boards of directors, it happens in social outings, it happens, in anything of those natures, in those circles. You bring who you know. And so all that further does is it closes in that circle and it tightens that gap. So there's less opportunity for people who aren't in those circles to come in. You lose the opportunity for diverse perspectives, for creative problem solving, and ways to bridge these gaps between communities and marginalized communities of color to the already ones that are privileged. We talked about this even recently with our DEI council about professional development opportunity. And in many places, and the zoo included, because we're not perfect and we're actively making change, and that's part of what sets us aside from a lot of other organizations, is that we have mentorship programs in place. And you look at, oh, well, it's for directors to, VPs or CEO. You're already at the top. You're already at the top of the food chain. So we purposely go in and we say, how can we support our young employees of color or young employees from marginalized backgrounds who are barely reaching into that entry-level leadership position? How do we support them and don't further keep them away from the pearly gates? And I will tell you, when we came into the zoo, we ripped apart the previous council because it was made up of nothing but senior leadership. And the best intentions, the best ideas, but people who were already at the top, who the rules don't always apply to, So we, with the best intentions, we scrapped it with their support so that everybody was on board, and that's part of it. I have members here from the zoo in support of this conversation, of this dialogue, and that speaks volumes that we're here and not afraid to be open about the progress we're making and being open about the mistakes that we're acknowledging to be better. So when we scrapped this old council, and now we have, it was about 12 of our most high executives, our senior leadership, and now it's 24 of the people with boots on the ground representing every single department, all the varying backgrounds, diverse perspectives of experience. So I just wanted to share that shout out for my council because it's amazing. Because these are the people who are impacted every day by those rules, by those policies, by these program implementations. They're the ones who face it every day. They're the ones who see the barriers that our guests face every day. So who better to make those changes than the ones who are impacted by it every day? And we always talk about code switching all around the zoo and such, because not only do I do it, and my council gets to see the best of me when the Cholita comes out, but so they get to see all those other sides of me, but the code switching that we not only expect but demand of our employees of color. We expect you to play a part if you want to keep this role. And that's everywhere you go. That's why I said it's not a zoo thing specifically, but it's a professional development thing. Because, and I was telling one of my colleagues on the way in, was that when I called my father today and I was like, Papa, I have this new thing I'm doing today, it's gonna be great. And he goes, don't go on the warpath. And he was like, you can't mess it up for the rest of us. And so, but it's fear that's embedded in, assimilation. Your kids have to be better. Your kids have to be the exception. Your kids have to assimilate and stay there, because if they can't show the other one, I wait. Edit that out of the video. But if my family, every time they see me on the news somewhere or they see me at a campaign, they're just like, you're gonna ruin it for everybody. So, because they're afraid, just like our senior leadership members in all of our companies are afraid of, what are my stakeholders gonna think? I have a loud Latina who's, she's queer, she's loud, she's abrasive. Like, what are they gonna think? Because they think it reflects on them. They don't think of the bigger picture all the time. So we have this, unexplainable and burdening expectation that we have to be perfect. There's little room, and my women of color especially, I know you feel it in here in the room, we have little room for error. Mm-hmm. We are representing more than just ourselves. Being young on top of that, queer on top of that, is very little room for any kind of error at all. So we constantly talk about this and create these spaces for open conversation with leadership, with stakeholders, because they have to see that if they want this to be sustainable, they have to make room for the rest of us to be our authentic selves. And that's hard to come by. So not only they don't realize that all the time, but realizing that the different professional development opportunities that come with that. So imagine the world that you can create and take this away to your work environments, take this away when you hear other young people of color trying to come up the ranks and talk about the differences and how they want to see this change, is that you're preparing the next generation of leaders to come up. And if you stay afraid, not that anybody in this room is afraid, you're here for DreamWeek, but staying afraid and challenging what those fears are, because that's what's going to create the space for this next group to come up and make these dreams a reality. this whole 2 weeks that we have to share our stories and share in this space together doesn't have to be a dream forever. We're working to make this a reality. And little Latina girl from the hood who wasn't always on the right side of the tracks and wasn't always making the best decisions, this was a dream. Leading a group that's here to make real change, working with local politicians, showing that we have a whole community that isn't heard from is a dream. So I want to just thank you guys for the opportunity to be up here to speak with you, kind of share a little bit about what we're doing, and just keep an open mind to the next dreamers that are past me that come up and try to make change. So thank you.
I already loved you, but I love you more now. So where are my queer folks at? Yes, we are queer as fuck. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. Love it. A-Rod, you killed it. Thank you so much. Y'all give it up for Alex Rodriguez. She did amazing. So I'm just gonna talk about my notes. I saw the first thing you said. I saw myself. Yes, we're gonna ask you questions. I saw myself when you said you went to the zoo and you didn't see yourself. No, I wanted to see it. She said she didn't see herself. That is me. I was a lieutenant colonel, I was a commander in the US Air Force, and I did not see myself. I went, I don't know what's going on. I never saw myself in any spaces. I was always one of one. That's not a very fun place to be. So thank you so much for being just like badass. Yeah, you killed it. Yeah, you are messing it up for the rest of them. I know that. And living in fear, what's that? What's the definition of fear? False evidence that appears real, right? So we're not gonna give any energy to something that's not even real. Give it up for the Lulu, man. All right, so, and the last thing I learned was just this whole talk about whose money are you listening to. I'm stealing that. Like, that was amazing. That was deep. That was hardcore. So thank you so much, my darling. Stay over there. This is why she's my friend. And we'll take feedback or questions from the audience, please. So you know how they say in class, right? Nobody raises their hand. The teacher is going to volunteer people. John, I already kind of put you. I know, not again. Okay, anybody, any questions, any feedback from the audience? Hi, honey. No one? Going once? Gone to the brother who's enjoying his food. So what comments do you have? Feedback, anything, just give me something.
Well,
happy
Dream Week.
Yes.
I'll start with there, and yeah, let's give it up.
Yeah, give it up for Dream Week.
And yes, Cassandra, I am here. My dear friend. You know that voice. We have a lot to do in this country, and what's been said so far is impactful, but we have work to do. The fact that we are all here listening, engaging in these conversations and engaging in the space where we are open enough to have these uncomfortable conversations, we got work to do.
Love it. So that's your spiel that you're sticking to it.
That's it.
Let's give it up for the gentleman enjoying his food. I mean, that's it. And then when I walked in this evening, I was like, oh my God, is that Angie Stone? All right, girl, what you got to say? What, give it to me.
Just in general
About what we're talking about.
it's very timely. It's good to hear different perspectives. You know, you can't be the only voice in the room, or you can't only listen to people that look just like you, because you're not really getting the act.
Or sound like you. Hello, the Nigerian accent.
That is facts. So it's good to hear different perspective and just to learn something just directly from people, not just on TV or something you read. It's something that's beautiful, hearing the actual voice and being able to make that human connection, especially after COVID. I mean, we've been kind of craving that, so this is awesome.
So I'm going to do something, thank you by the way, I'm going to do something that is probably not, I don't know. I want us to give it up for all the non-people of color who are bold enough to be in the space. Give it up for them. See a few of y'all. Yeah, I mean, you know. Hello, queer, we're here. We have to give it up. So thank y'all so much. Welcome. Okay, so any questions from the crowd? Going once? I love it. But then you walk.
No, I was going to comment on what you said about all the people not of color that are here tonight. And so, as somebody who's clearly white, I wanted to say with everything that Alex has said tonight that she has made a very impactful community at the zoo with the DEI community that she's created. And I can say that as somebody not of color who has a lot of questions, who asks a lot of questions that maybe I'm supposed to know the answers to and I don't. And I think it's been a really great environment for me to ask these questions and get these answers in a safe space and know that I'm coming from a place of understanding and wanting to learn more. So I just think if you don't know what she does, you should learn what she does because she's made it very wholesome for somebody like me to ask those questions. So
love it. Give it up. Give it up. One of the things I like, one of the things I've learned, one of the things I do more now is actually, as a physician, I already ask questions for a living. If you know me, you know I'll ask you a question. But asking better questions. And that comes from asking questions to begin with. So the more questions you ask, the better your questions are. So the bottom line is just stay curious. But don't ask those questions like, huh? What did you just say? You gotta stay curious, but you don't want to get beat up on the east side. Okay, so I appreciate you though. I appreciate you. As long as your name is not Karen, I'm good. Yeah. All right, that's good. All right, so do you want to just kind of give a feedback to what you've heard so far? I'm loving it. I'm loving it so much.
She's saying stay curious and stay uncomfortable. That's where a lot of it comes down to. And, you know, one young lady was in the back, you know, talking about hearing from a real person and hearing from real lived experiences. I think we get so used to, you know, the first thing I told our new council when we were formed last year was everybody hears DEI and it's a buzzword. You know, it's, oh, everything's diversity. I have leadership now who doesn't really understand what DEI means. And so that's the first thing we always dive into. And you hear these things like, oh, diversity hires and all these different things. And it's a very different reality and practice when you see it in the real world and you see what it really looks like, you know, and how it's not performative and it's not check boxes, because we face that all the time. You know, oh, don't forget to put that Black History Month post on Facebook today. Well, what are you doing to support your Black employees in the workplace? What are you doing to support the Black community who's supporting your organization? So these are real conversations we have all the time because those of us who, the neighborhood I grew up in, Houston, was Black and Latino. So we see these impacts all the time. Even where I live out here has a lot of Black and Latino families. And I can't stand that I don't see them in the zoo as much as like I see everybody else. And so, but we're changing that, Dr. Lulu, you know, we're making real changes.
Love it.
And creating the spaces for our white allies to help us make that change, because that's the reality of it, is that I constantly tell our leadership and our team members and our board of directors and everybody that you do need white allies. Who do you think's making these laws, y'all? And so we talk about this because that's the reality of it, is that we know where majority of power sits in our society. And if we don't make real allies there and show them what it means to move past performative actions, our cause is still going to fall on silent ears. So I thank our white allies who are also here and all of our friends and everything. So we really can't do this work without our full community. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And before I let you speak, another white ally, give it up for her. So, you know, everyone is talking about DEI. People forget the B. And talking about B, well, there you go. So we're talking about B. Stay right now. So talking about B. The very first time I came to this space, on my way out, like literally I gave a talk, and then on my way out, I saw safe place. I made a U-turn if possible, shut up, I want to, who owns this place? Who owns this place? We're like, that guy over there. I said, that guy over there? I walked up to Kent, I introduced myself like I usually do, and today I want y'all to meet Kent. Kent has created a safe space for queer folks. Are you kidding me? I have a talk show, which I do every Tuesday out back there. Well, I haven't done the talk show in a year because whatever the reason is. But I want y'all to come, and I want y'all to meet Kent. He is exactly what the world needs. White enough looking ally. And may I use a very colorful, colored member of our family. And just come, Kent, come say hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to have y'all here tonight. Glad to be a part of this DreamWeek event. I was a speaker last year, and it's just so important. It's so important what this week represents. It just, especially this year's topic is so important for so many different reasons, for so many different people. So I just want to thank everybody for being here.
And talking about this year's topic about identity and inclusion, you know, y'all, can you believe that in my LinkedIn DM last week, someone said to me, I don't care about pronouns. I was like, what? Did you go to elementary? Do you know that in kindergarten you learn your, like, why has pronouns suddenly become like this political thing? We'll talk about that later. But y'all give it up to my guest so she can go sit down. Love it. Oh yes, she had the one question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, Cassandra said something earlier that I think speaks to what Alex was also sharing, and that is that you have to have those uncomfortable conversations. And you also have to have grace with that. And I found that on the DEI Council that we've created. As Laura said, we can come in with our questions, our thoughts. We're welcomed. We get down in the mud. We get real down with it. And it's so important because that's how change is going to make. That's how change is going to happen. Not by having an opinion, but by having a conversation.
And that's all she wrote. I love it. All right. Alex, thank you so much. We are making something with the mics today. Which mic? The mics are tired of us, but thank y'all so much. I want to say a big shout out to Ron. I'm not going to call you out, but you know who you are. Welcome to the space. All right. So my third guest. So true talk, real talk. I got 3 sons and 1 trans daughter. And I told them about this event, and then I said, and my third speaker is a police officer. Mikey said, Mom, don't go. Don't go. That's it. Don't go. I was like, what do you mean? And Mom, what do you mean? Are you interviewing like a policeman? Like for real? Are you for real? I said, dude, we have to. No, you cannot meet them. And I said, oh my God. So, I may not have a home to go to today. Because as y'all know, kids rule and when you have adult kids, they rule the house. So they're like, Mom, you're really going to interview a policeman? I said, yes, I am. Whew. So, Joel Pope is a San Antonio police officer who is assigned to the Chief's Office. Am I reading without my glasses? Chief's Office Community Engagement.
Put on your glasses.
I can't. Okay, so Joel spent much of his career as a training instructor at San Antonio Police Academy. He knows effective, comprehensive training of law enforcement personnel he knows that it translates into higher personal satisfaction for officers. This elevated personal satisfaction directly translates to better police services for our community and builds trust between law enforcement and those they serve. Joel has spent over a decade developing police training programs. Should I continue? Centered around enhancing quality law enforcement services as it relates to police legitimacy. These programs are based, is that biased or based on realistic scenario training with an emphasis on stress control techniques and performance psychology as it relates to critical police. I don't even know what all these things mean, but some word international, like really smart words. Joel supports office career and life development by implementing performance recovery optimization techniques. A first within the San Antonio Police. Give it up. It's a first. I will take a first. Yeah. Based on Joel's work with San Antonio PD, San Antonio was chosen and presented to the US Congress as an example of health and wellness programs designed to provide successful law enforcement, mental health, and wellness strategies. Okay. Joel currently works with the International Association of Chiefs of Police as a training consultant working with major cities across the United States. Preparing police officers to be healthy and effective inspires Joel's work due to the direct impact it has on the community they are serving. I agree. Joel is a local, state, and federal trained police instructor with 26 years of law enforcement experience. I like. He has trained and provided training programs for numerous police agencies, corporates, and community members alike. Joel works closely with the youth of San Antonio. Now, I really like that. Specifically with the Boys and Girls Club of San Antonio, SMART programs, and the Good Samaritan Center. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice from Texas State University and a T. Cole Master Peace Officer license. All right. Yeah. Give it up for my next speaker, Joel Paul!
Woo! Yes. I too am fighting the reading glasses.
I know, right? Oh my God, like for real.
First and foremost, guys, can I thank you guys? Yeah, well, it's almost as tall as I am. First and foremost, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to serve you for 27 years. Thank you, thank you. My partner mentioned 1970, 51 years, or 52 years for her, 51 years for me. I've been in San Antonio. I was born and raised here in San Antonio. Before I get into what I wanted to talk about tonight about identity, I really just wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself because I love what we're talking about tonight, right? Getting to know each other. And we're not doing that. We are doing that here, right? Give it up, because we're doing that here tonight. And I love that. I love that. But if we don't know each other, we're already starting off on the wrong foot, right? I remember the Karate Kid. That's going to age me a little bit. Mr. Miyagi, one of his famous lines was, is it okay if I do the accent? Because I don't know if I can do it justice. Such a great actor. Walk a left side, okay. Walk a right side, okay. Walk middle, squish like great. And what I took from that as a child, and I don't know what he meant by it, other than what I took as a child is like, you know what, Joel? You need to start asking yourself some questions. You need to start challenging the way you think about the world around you. And both of my parents, so if you'll indulge me, maybe spend 2 minutes just giving you my background so you know who you're talking to, or I'm talking to you. Both of my parents were public school teachers. I was adopted as a newborn. I was given up by teenage parents here in San Antonio. Both of my parents were school teachers. My father was very wealthy. He worked for Judson Independent School District when it was a 1A school. For those of y'all that are local know that was a long time ago. He was very wealthy. He made $4,280 a year, his first paycheck. The reason I'm telling y'all this is because it formed who I was as a human being, both of my parents, right? And I think that all of us in the audience can see that our parents, the people that are important to us, really form how we view the world and how we view our identities. And so my identity was always formed by them and what we didn't have or what they allowed me to have. We heated our home with wood. I didn't have air conditioning until I went to college in 1990, and I was freezing all night. I told my roommate, I'm like, it's cold in here. He's like, bro, this is air conditioning. I'm like, I like it, but I'm freezing. So I had blankets piled up on me until I got used to it. And one of the things that my parents always told me was, if you think something is strange, ask. And what hit me was not the asking part, because I was always very curious, but if I see something strange. So now I'm thinking to myself, what is strange? Right? Because growing up, we were pretty accepting of everything that was going on around us. And I realized what they meant by that. It was always that internal asking questions, right? So one of the things that's important here, and I'm representing the police department tonight, in case y'all didn't notice the shirt and badge and gun. And I have to wear the gun because it's part of my uniform, and if I don't wear it, I'll get fired. Then I won't have to be able to pay for anything. My wife will be mad, my kids will be mad. But outside of this uniform, I'm a father. Some of the things that we do in community engagement don't involve this uniform. As a matter of fact, most of the people that I meet in the community, I go and meet with my partner, Ron Brown, who's in the back. I got to give a shout out to him for coming and supporting me tonight. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Ron is a resident of the East Side, but I would be remiss in saying he is from Chicago, so we got to give him Chicago props. Ron has been instrumental in forming my opinions of things. Ron has, if you don't mind, Ron, if I tell some of your, there's one story of a million. When he starts talking, I gotta listen. This guy is incredible. I've been to Chicago multiple times, and I just love the town. But he was actually the first African American quarterback at his high school in 1950. No, 1960. No, 1979. Wow. My mother went to Highlands High School. She graduated in 1964. I could tell you some stories, but I think y'all know where I'm going with that. We have to get to know each other. When I was at the training academy for 15 years, I used to take my badge off and I would pass it around the room because the cadets didn't have theirs yet, right? They were still in the process of getting theirs. And I would have them pass it around and touch it. And some of them would look at it and go, yeah. And some of them would be like, yes, I can't wait. And I would tell them when they get it back, I said, y'all touched that. Where does the power come from to wear that badge? Who's entrusting you with that? And some of them would get it. The public, I don't know, the Congress, the laws. And I told them, I said, this is one of the biggest honors you can bestow on someone is to allow them to have power to do the right thing. So the mission of the San Antonio Police Department has always been to build police legitimacy. What is police legitimacy? Does anybody know what police legitimacy is? I promise I won't bring the microphone up to you. Just raise your hand, it'll make me feel better. So police legitimacy is the legitimacy for us to operate in your community and for you to trust us to do that. So how do you think we build police community? Doing events like this, thank you, doctor, appreciate that. Allowing us to come into your space, thank you for that. We like for y'all to be in our space too. We have something called the Citizens Police Academy. I want to invite each and every one of you. If you say you are here for DreamWeek tonight, you automatically get put to the top of the list because there is a waiting list. Wow. Because we would love for you guys to come out and see what we do as police officers. It is a difficult job. I'm not going to lie to you. We rely heavily on your support, heavily on your support. There's a lot of trauma in policing. I know the doctor read a little bit on my bio about officer wellness. That's a huge part of my heart, is to make sure that we have well officers, because well officers provide better services. And I'm glad to... I'll sign up. Okay. Hey, you know what? I don't want to do the recruiting thing, but I see a lot of people that I think would make great police officers. So, Alex, you said it, so I'm going to do it. Please get with me. We would love to have you guys on the department. 1996 was when I got me. Now I'm going to just segue to that. I know I've only got 20 minutes, Doctor. So I'm going to try to make sure and get this through this. I'm going to segue into that on the diversity angle. When I got into policing in 1996, I can tell you there's a huge difference in the diversity in the police department, in particular with females in the police department. And we have such wonderful, strong, wonderful police officers, female police officers. And we call them police officers. You said policeman, I am, man, but police officers, wonderful police officers. They love their community that they serve. On a personal note, because today's about identity, right? My story. One of the things that's very close to my heart is knowing other cultures. So for me, it's about food. I notice many of y'all are eating tonight. One of the things that my partner Ron and I do is we get together with people in the community over food. And I love food. Today we were at the chef's table. If you don't know that one.
Yes, I took it.
It is Turkish. Awesome.
I just had lunch.
I didn't see you. Oh, okay, to go. One of our greatest allies is the Turkish Raindrop Center. I think one of the dream speakers was Professor Ozar. I think he was here. Oh, excellent. So, food, right? Culture. When everybody's eating, everybody's happy, and we let our guard down. So somebody told me, "Hey, Joel, that makes you a foodie," and I'm like, "What's a foodie?" So I had to go look that up. Apparently, I am because I love food. My ethnic background is Ukrainian. So one of the things, yes, I am not blushing and I'm not nervous. I'm always pink. That's just the way it is. It's the Russian-Ukrainian in me. Well, this is the truth. So how do we compare ourselves with our family members? And I consider each and every one of you children of God. That's what my views are. And y'all are my children. And we're all related. We're all intertwined. So I hear of the things that are happening in the world today. And being in uniform and representing the police department, I'm not going to get political, but I will tell you my story. My great-grandfather, in 1930, so we're relatively new to the country, 1930, came over from the Ukraine because of the similar situations what's happening now with Russia. And so he came over and started his life in Brooklyn, New York. Any New Yorkers? Right. Queens. All right. So he was a worker in the Domino's sugar factory, and that's what he did his entire life until he passed away. But one of the things that stood out to me on the stories that I was told was that he never learned English. He never learned to speak English. As a matter of fact, he was opposed to it. He said, "Why would I want to speak that? I speak my Ukrainian, and I'm good to go." And I just think that that's an important story because my grandfather spoke both. And I don't speak a lick of it except Nostrovia, and y'all know what that is. It's salud. So languages are important. Food's important. One of the things that I did was what I have done in the past was work down at the convention center as security. They use San Antonio police officers, and I would walk past the University of Mexico. Do y'all know where that is downtown?
No.
Okay, so there's the University of Mexico. As my understanding, there's only 3 in the world. One's in Toronto, one's in Ciudad de Mexico, and the other one's in San Antonio. Yes. So I walked past it one day and I said, "You know what? I'm going to go learn Spanish because I'm just super interested." And we live in an environment that I want to be inclusive. I want to include myself in this. It wasn't about asking anybody else to include them in my life. I wanted to go include myself in their life. So I walked in and I said, "Hello, I want to learn Spanish." And she looked at me and she said, "Un momento, por favor." I just kind of came out and said, "Hello, sir. Sorry, not very many people speak Spanish here." And I said, "Well, that's why I'm here. I'd like to learn." So it's an immersive course. Estaba estudiante por 2 años en la UNAM. Hablo español. I learned it.
Nice.
I love Spanish. So guess what that did? And the reason I tell you that story is to tell you what it did for me. It just completely opened doors to folks that when I speak Spanish now, I learn different stories that aren't the stories I heard growing up. I learned different stories about their experiences. Well, guess what? That makes me a better police officer because now when I go to enforce the law, which every single person in this room should expect us to do, right? To keep you safe. But I have a background when I approach. I understand things. So the things that we impress upon our trainees are to make sure that we are understanding of what things mean, because things mean different things to different people. And the final thought that I wanted to bring across to y'all is a good friend of mine, a good officer, and I don't think he'll mind if I say this because he says it in public speaking all the time. So Officer Hardin Alonzo, I'll owe you lunch if I mess this up. But one of the things that he said that I thought was very profound, he's an African-American officer, and he said, "I bleed blue," and he'll tell this to the public, "but I wake up black." And I said, "Okay, I don't understand that." But as I started to think about it, in the opposite, I wear a blue uniform. So I want to challenge each and every one of y'all tonight, that when you see that uniform, what do you think? what do you think of? Do you think of a Ukrainian, third, fourth generation from an immigrant? Do you think of a police officer that maybe doesn't have your best interests at heart, which I assure you that's not the case? And you know, the list could go on. I don't want to put words into your mouth, but think of those things. We're here for you. We love you. We're doing the right thing. We're trying to do the right thing. We need your help, and we really appreciate these conversations. We really appreciate it. And I also would like to give a shout out to my boss, Chief McManus, who has allowed people like myself and Ron to be in space where we can share with y'all what the police department does, and we can also learn so that we can be a better police department. So I really appreciate that, and it would be remiss if I didn't mention it.
Muchísimas gracias. Yo también hablo español. As a matter of fact, I wanted to say categorically, ahorita, I speak more languages than anybody else in this room. So let's give it a try, right? Because Dr. Lulu never lies. Who speaks one language? Who speaks two? Speaks three? Speaks four? Who speaks 5 languages fluently? Who speaks 6? Who speaks 7? Anyone speak 8 languages? I speak 9 languages. Oui, je parle français. But no, on a more serious note, I do speak 9 languages. Most Nigerians speak at least 4. 4, yes. 5. Yes, at least 4, minimum. Most Nigerians. French, yeah. Most. Enough of us speak 5. But you gotta be a lunatic to speak 9. But what I do is, as a physician, as a pediatrician, one of the things I learned when I was still in practice was, when I walk into the room, I have a mother whose child's been having a fever all night. She's not happy right now. She has a hijab on. I need to say Salamu Alaikum. She needs to see me as a friend. Or she's not going to tell me Jack. I cannot help her child if she doesn't see me as a friend. And so I advise anyone who will take it, learn 2 more languages, just because Dr. Lulu said so. And when you walk into a space and you're able to just even just the salutations alone, they do a double take. Okay, all right. It's about that time, right? Give it up for. So I'll take any kind of feedback from the audience after mine. I like that he said, stay curious. I like that. That seems to be like the theme today. Have y'all noticed that? Just the need to stay curious, from Cassandra to A-Rod. And this power to do the right thing stuck out for me. Does the police, as a matter of fact, do the right thing? When I was coming here, I was speaking to my brother who's in Nigeria, and I was saying what I was doing, and said something about moving to San Diego and how I'm trying to find people who know the right people, who know the right white men, is what I said. And my brother said, you know what? Yeah, it's gotta be the right white man. Are you the right white man? So, does the police, as a matter of fact, do they do the right thing by the people? This is my question. This is my only question for the night.
So, police officers are what?
Human.
Human. Thank you. Sometimes I wonder, right? So as humans, do we make mistakes? Absolutely, right? Recognizing those mistakes is key, and taking corrective action. I think we would all agree on that, right? When I was a kid, I got a lot of corrective action. One of the things that, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but most people have their phones with them. I'd like to point you to our website, to San Antonio Police website. And under our website page, under the direction of our chief, there's a transparency tab. Every piece of information that you could imagine is on there, from officer-involved shootings, disciplinary action, and all of the information that you could imagine you'd want to ask. So I would encourage y'all all to go to that and review it. We like to be transparent. We don't like to be transparent. We are transparent. And when we have to take corrective actions, I think that's done. And y'all can see that with our department. When compared to other departments, the San Antonio Police Department does a fantastic job. That's not Joel saying that. I've been other places. I've been in Oakland. I've been in San Francisco. I've been in Baton Rouge. I've been in Philadelphia. And they tell us that. The citizens tell us that. The other police officers tell us that. And I'm proud of that. But you know who gets the credit for that? You guys. Because of the support. And we're always going to strive for police legitimacy. So to answer your question, do humans always do the right thing? No. Is that up to me to make those decisions? Not in my current position, no. My current position is to get to know people. My current position is to take y'all's concerns to the chief and to make sure that we are being as legitimate as we can. And I take that to heart.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes. Okay, two for you and then one for you. Okay, Jenny?
Hey Joel, my name is Ronnie. In speaking on legitimacy and whether or not police officers do the right thing, there's a program that I understand is coming to San Antonio Police Department called Lights On. How do you think that will impact relations with San Antonians?
Hi, Ronnie. I'm not familiar with that program. I'm ashamed to say I don't know that one.
It is a program where if a driver has a busted headlight or tail light, police officers will give them a voucher instead of giving them a summons.
You know what? It just dawned on me. I did hear about that on the news. I am not familiar with that program, so instead of saying something in error, I can look into that and I can get back to you. If you would like to give me some information, maybe I can email you or go through Dr. Lulu. So I will find that information out for you. But it is a relatively new program from what I understand.
Thank you.
Did you have a comment?
I just have a comment. So I know Joel, and there's a couple other people in this room as well, who have been trained in something called compassionate integrity. And so Joel didn't talk about that when he was talking about his identity earlier, so I'm going to kind of call you out on that you didn't talk about it. But and there's a couple other people in the room that I recognize as well who were part of that program. But we've all been trained in something called being compassionate and having compassionate integrity. And I think that's real important, and I'm more than happy to talk about that program with other people all the time. But it's important to know that we have police officers in this city, and I recognize that I don't look the right color to have any kind of issue with police, right? And I'm gonna freely admit I live a life of white privilege. I've never been stopped. I freely acknowledge that is from white privilege. But it's important to know that we have police officers that have been trained in that program. There is a secondary program in our city being run by San Antonio Mental Health, who, full disclosure, happens to be who I work for, but trauma-informed care. We are working currently on training our entire city staff population, 12,000 plus of us, in trauma-informed care and what that is about. And the police department was one of the first pilot departments to sign in to have all their police officers trained in trauma-informed care. So I think it's important to just note that our city is doing things to try to get people in those places where they're going to be in a space where they're more responsive. So just want to add that because Joel didn't mention any of that.
Thank you. And yeah, I do know a thing or two about trauma-informed care. I have my first TEDx talk is actually about childhood trauma. So yeah, child suicide. Yeah, that's another day's conversation. But I decided to, because you know, when you're given the mic and you like to talk like I do, it's a problem. So I said I was going to do this part, which is officially not part of the speaker series. I wanted the speakers to come back and sit on stage, and so y'all can, we're gonna give each of them 1 minute to just kind of do a brief summary of what they talked about, and then we can ask them questions or any leftover thoughts or whatever else. Do y'all want to do that? Is that okay? We do that? All right, so we're gonna start with Sandra.
All right, since we're going rogue here, apparently. Just go the road. I don't really want to re-sum it up. I will just say that something that kept coming back throughout the rest of the talks is this idea of the danger of the single narrative. And so to give full credit, and I'm not going to mispronounce her name. So there is a Nigerian who has this wonderful TED Talk called The Danger of the Single Story. And in that beginning of that story, she relates how she came to America to attend college, and she had a white roommate who had a single narrative of what a Nigerian was, what their entire kind of existence and being was, and came to find that that was completely false. And so, and this came back to me a little bit in response to the last conversation, is that goes both ways. We cannot interact with people with that single narrative in mind. Not all police officers are one way. Now we can talk about the system, right? We can talk about the structure, but when we're engaging with people, we need to remember that they are not a single thing. So one, I really appreciate you sharing about your personal background, that all of the speakers, but just to remember that we're not have real conversations and we're not going to make progress.
Absolutely, and as I was, hearing more from both of you, originally when I went to college, I went for opera performance, but part of my intersectionality, which I appreciate everything you were saying, yeah, but your girl's from the hood and it was broke, so I couldn't do that for a living. Again, that intersectionality and those limitations, and part of why I changed into going into politics, even what Joel was saying, that most of my family is current. Some of them are in prison still, but I've been in prison. My experience with the police growing up was not a pleasant one, and I've thankfully created new relationships with policemen and police officers as I've gotten older. But this intersectionality and everything that we've been talking about today, and these barriers that we're all doing our part to remove and disrupt, there are so many bits that go into it. We're just a tiny, tiny piece of an ongoing puzzle that's still being created and it's still being, broken up and everything. And I keep thinking back to how I've found even little pieces of myself, even in the conversations that you both have shared today. And my only thing I wanted to kind of recap on what I was talking about was this, that, you both were talking about, can you say 50, 51, and I'm 32. But it's always a privilege to me to be here with other experienced advocates in these fields, because I have so much to still learn in my youth and my developing of my own skills. But what a privilege it is to be a first generation American and to be in these positions, code switching or not, just to be in the same space as both of you. So thank you both. But yeah, just as you're going into new places, as you're looking at who surrounds you, and don't doubt anybody trying to make part of that change. And everything that even Cassandra was saying, and Joe, don't judge somebody by just the face value that you see, and stay curious and getting to know everybody, because each of us, we're not a monolith, so just keeping that in mind and keep staying curious.
Microphone and make a noise. Privileged to be with you guys this evening. Two strong ladies that I'm privileged to sit beside, so thank you guys for what you had to say as well. Let's give them a hand. What do you think? Now, as for my sisters, 51, 52, we do have some experience. But I will tell you this, and you just clued me in on something that I was going to say something totally different, but would we have seen this 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago? I don't think so.
What y'all think?
So let's keep the conversation going. There's a quote, I don't remember who it's by, but it's about policing, and it says, the public views police effectiveness based on the lack of crime, not just the lack of crime though. The public views police effectiveness based on the lack of crime, not just the lack of crime though. But you at the San Antonio Police Department. You at the San Antonio Police Department, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. No question is dumb. We will not ignore you, and we will get in contact with you because we are always students. So thank you guys again for allowing us to be here.
And thank y'all so much for allowing me to be the hostess with the mostess this evening. Thank you so much. TikTok, y'all have been awesome, doing lots of commentary. Love it, love it, love it. I just, I always have something to say. So, we are connected by our storylines is a line that I came up with a long time ago after watching the commercial that says some electrical thing says we're connected by power lines. And I was like, no, we're connected by storylines. These three humans today, human beings, and have each one, as they told their stories, I saw bits of me like A-Rod said, in each one. And I think everyone did. And so we should celebrate both our differences and our similarities, because honestly, we're all we've got. The earth is already crying as it is. My kids are, millennials and Gen Zers, they're like, Mom, y'all messed up the earth. I'm like, me? Your generation, like, I did that. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This evening, I really appreciate y'all coming out and all staying till the end. That to me is a sign that the stories that were told today were needed. We need to come back tomorrow, because I know there's another one tomorrow, right? Yes. And there are lots and lots and lots of events taking place, if you don't know. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Who was first time ever at the Dakota? Ever? Okay. Who's first time ever at any DreamWeek event? Woo! So, you got new clients, baby. And
this place.
And I may very well, I do have I do really truly have a live talk show that takes place here on Tuesday evenings. It's called The Pride Corner, where I talk to queer folk. It's a lot of fun. We're sharing stories, and I may bring it back just before I leave. What do you think? Yeah? All right. But other than that, y'all, thank you so much. I want you to stay behind, eat, make merry. If you're drinking, don't drive. If you're driving, don't drink. Drink, drive. I don't care. I don't drink. I'm sorry. But did anybody have any questions or anything else for the? I want them to tell us where we can follow them on social media. But I want to hear if y'all have any questions or any dying feedback or anything you want for the speakers today. Yes, no, maybe so? Someone from the back, yes.
Very quickly, I wrote it down because my ADHD jumps all over the place. And I'm like, where was I? So to Alexandra Rodriguez, you mentioned performative and representation. And for me, who I'm an avid podcast listener, it's great to see that those podcasters and interviews and interviewees all over the US, that we have actually something that is happening in the back of our rooms. I don't know if that was your question, but that's what I'm going with. And excuse my brain, officer. Okay. It's too long, but I'm just gonna go back to the nitty-gritty. When my son was a teenager, he and his friends were stopped by a police officer. It was his friend's fault, but the one that ended up with all the issues with my son. And when he told me the story, he's like, I wanted to run away because I thought of you that you were gonna get mad at me. And I said, well, I'm glad you didn't, because you probably would have been telling me the story right now. And so where I'm going with this is that I applaud everything that the Academy is doing and the outreach. I used to have a restaurant downtown, and I always went up to my safe officer for whatever was going on with homelessness, which is another topic for another session. But there is a gap. People don't know how to act when they're stopped by officers. And so it came to me because of my son. If I realized that and then we've seen it where people know how to act, but they've been taken down. So how is the gap closed from both ends, from the officers and the citizens? What can the citizens do, and what does the academies throughout the U.S., not just in San Antonio, do so that when someone's stopped, people know how to behave, but also officers understand that yes, that they're in the line, but also people are getting nervous to be stopped by an officer. So that was, it's maybe a rhetoric question, but yeah.
That's a great question, and I have a fantastic answer. We have a training program that I put on called Success to Respect. We do it in the high schools. Write that down. I know y'all are staring at me like, I'm going to remember that. Success to Respect. I'm going to say it again until somebody puts it in their phone or does something. Just pretend like you're doing it. Success to Respect. It's on the San Antonio Police website, Success to Respect. Being recorded, so I guess we can rewind that. We will come to your school. We will come to your church. We will come to your home. Well, no, we won't do that. But we will come to your event. We'll come to the Dakota Ice House. We will come somewhere that you need us to be, and we will talk to your youth about how to interact with police. It's called Success Through Respect for a reason. Respect goes both ways. So we teach the kiddos how to react, especially new drivers. For adults, we have the Citizens Police Academy. Again, please sign up for that. It's a free program that's 12 weeks long. It takes you through the entirety of the San Antonio Police Department, to include coming out to the police department and getting inside a police car and actually making a traffic stop yourself so you can see what it looks like from the other side. And then what we see and what you see. So yes, we do have those programs. Please get with me if you don't remember that, and I will get you signed up so that you can participate in that. And another thing real quick, ma'am, I get nervous too when I get pulled over, because when I'm off duty, it doesn't matter. So I understand that completely.
Can I add something to that? Because we are in the nature of throwing events for the public, and we are a place where the public comes, you know, and this is from not the police officer's perspective, just a citizen in the community, it really is about also building relationships, and respect does go both ways. So one of the things that we try to do whenever there's an opportunity, and I know that the Dakota does as well, for years now, the Dakota and the Carver and other organizations on the east side have been hosting these events called Fifth Friday events, where just the community, basically it's like a big old block party on the east side. So what we've been doing is inviting officers, especially our safe officers here for the east side, to be there, not for security, to just be there. To be there as our neighbors, as our colleagues, as members of this community. And it gives them an opportunity to just have conversation and start to build relationships. And that's really, I think, across kind of what we all do, is building relationships. And you build authentic relationships that come from a genuine place, and you build trust. And I think that's when you have trust, my hope would be is that when our youth, especially our young youth of color, do get stopped by a police officer, if there's trust and respect there, then those interactions go a little different. But we have to work as a community to build that. And yes, the police department does have work to do, but we also have opportunities to say, hey, come be with us. I really appreciated what you said earlier about immersing yourself in other people's communities and stories, because then you get to understand that they navigate the world and they understand it differently than you. There are cultural differences, even in how we respond to people of authority, right? Or how we react in those situations. So I think building, creating those opportunities for there to just be more just community engagement. That's your title, right? Yes. Community engagement. More opportunities for that between the police officers and the community, I think would go a long way. And we see it. I mean, the kids get so excited when they get to meet the safe officers. They can climb in the police car, turn on the siren. They're asking them stories, and all of a sudden they're not afraid, right? They feel like they have some connection. So that's all.
I love that. I have a story to tell. For those of you who know me, I was stationed in Pecos, Texas, 2 years ago now. There was a brand new establishment when we had like huge migration of a bunch of kids, and they needed a pediatrician, and I was the one pediatrician in Pecos. We had, I don't know, over 8,000 kids in about 3 months while I was there. And I love what I did. The weather in Pecos is another thing. But I was there, I just loved what I do. I mean, I love being a pediatrician. So don't you know, I left what I love doing, because one day, my youngest son called, and because there's no Wi-Fi, nothing over there, I missed the call. That day he was stopped by a police officer going 45 in a 35, 35 in a 38 in a 25, school zone, O'Connor High School. And he knows to call me, call his eldest sibling, call the middle sibling, call grandma, in that order. He got to the eldest sibling. And the plan is call and just let them stay on the phone and just talk to the police officer. Now, it was a great encounter from a mother's side, because he said the police officer was actually like kind of trying to make him relax and was cracking jokes. So, which one of y'all is a veteran? Because my car has a video, that kind of thing. And he said, Mom, it was not so bad. I was like, all I heard was that the police stopped my child, and my child had one phone call. So I went straight to the man and said, I quit. They're like, what? I'm going home. So I want to say on behalf of my child and those kids who do have better stories of encounters with the police, it's not all, He's 6'2", he's got dreadlocks. I mean, to some people he's a threat. He's 16 though. See, that's the funny thing. When he leaves the house, he's not my cute little 16-year-old anymore. He's a man. But he's not. He's my baby. And so I do understand as a mother, I freaked out, I quit the job. I was like, I don't want to hear what y'all have to say. All I know is I'm taking care of people's kids coming across the border, and my kid had the one phone call. That's all I had to say. So I want to say thank you on behalf of my own child, who, had a good encounter with the police. And every good thing must come to an end. So it's been an amazing night. Y'all don't forget to come back tomorrow for day 2 of the speaker series at the Dakota, and check out the red, we have loads more events across the city. Go check out these places, support them. I'm a small business owner. I know what it's like to have a small business and need support. I'm talking about small businesses. How many of y'all know your pronouns? How many of y'all do not know your pronouns? Okay. How many of y'all don't care? Right. So I'm teaching a class tomorrow. I have the mic. It's free, it's virtual, and it's about, you guessed it, pronouns. Peace out, y'all. My name is Dr. Lulu. It's been amazing! Bye, y'all.